Is my new mic working? Hey, cool.
Do I need to turn my mic
Yeah, but is there anybody in the other room to say if they can hear me?
on? Is anybody that wants to hear you?
No one wants to hear me. That's too bad.
We ready, Andre? I'm ready.
Rock and roll.
You guys ready?
Yep.
Call this meeting to order? All right. Good evening, everybody. And welcome to the Town Council meeting for the New Shoreham Town Council meeting for Monday, August 2nd, 2021. The New Shoreham Town Council meeting will occur in person. The supporting documents are on Clerkbase, and you can watch live via YouTube on the New Shoreham website, New Shoreham YouTube site. I just want to explain that item number 1 on the agenda is a Zoom public hearing, as I understand. So people can call in if comments on that.
It does have a Zoom component. It was posted and advertised for with the Zoom component.
Right, okay, so we're thinking we want to move item 6 and 7 up to number 1s and 2s. Would that affect that Zoom public hearing?
You may want to choose to get the Zoom portion over at the
Okay.
beginning and then
Shouldn't
move
take
into.
long anyway.
Shouldn't take long. All right, thank you for clarification on that, Millie. Item number 1 on the agenda is a public hearing to consider and act on the issuance of an outdoor entertainment license for outdoor amplification or entertainment pursuant to Chapter 8, Article 9, Section 8-254 of the revised ordinance of the Town of New Shoreham. The following named establishment has made an application with the Office of the Town Clerk, Tail Fins LLC, doing business as Fins, 212 Water Street, Plat 6, Lot 157. All that's a good word, huh? All remonstrant are entitled to be heard before the granting or denial of said license at the time of the public hearing. I will make a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Yeah, Martha.
Seconded by Martha Ball. All those in favor, Keith?
Yes.
Martha?
Aye.
I'm in favor. Stan?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 to open up the public hearing. Is anybody from Tail Fins here? Welcome. Thank you.
You want to introduce himself?
Sorry? Do you want to introduce, do you have anything you want to comment on that?
Just representing Telfins, my name is Neil Westcott.
Just for the record, it's.
Yep, I'm representing Telfins LLC, and the owner John Franchi. My name is Neil Westcott, the acting general manager. And I'm just here to see how this comes out.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions on this entertainment license?
I have a couple on the limitations.
Okay.
Just want to remind you that if granted, it's stated that the speakers that you'll probably use for amplification must be pointed inward and not outward to tend to radiate out in an attempt to maybe attract more people. So that's been the source of a problem with outdoor entertainment licenses for quite some time. So I'm just reminding you of that. And secondly, on this list of bullets for limitations, it doesn't state that they must comply with town noise ordinance.
I assumed that was an assumed. Doesn't it have to?
Yeah.
All entities have to
Yeah.
abide by the ordinances. I mean, it's sort of like, same thing about over serving or whatever it may be. They have
But I
to.
didn't find that anywhere in here.
Because we can't list every ordinance.
Yeah.
They also have to abide by every other
Liquor.
don't do ordinance in the town.
Okay, so I'll just remind you to point them inwards so we don't have a problem and everything will go smooth also.
We just have an echo instead.
Thank you, Councilor Emanuel. Is there any comments? Anybody else from the council? Public? Millie, anybody online? I'll make a motion to, in order to grant the new outdoor entertainment license.
Do you want to close the public hearing?
Oh, yes. I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a second? Make a motion to close the public hearing. Seconded by Martha. All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I'm in favor. Keith?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. I'll make a motion to grant a new outdoor entertainment license in accordance with the Town of New Shore ordinances and the application on file to Tail Fins LLC, doing business as Fins, 212 Water Street, Plat 6, Lot 157. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Keith. Any more discussion?
No, the only discussion, yes, the only, I don't know, whatever, friendly advice I can make is that while I'm so happy you guys are doing what you're doing, I'm so happy about the establishment, Fins and the fish, everything opening up, noise is always a big topic, and anything you can do to help manage that. And obviously, there are some places near you that are fairly loud at times, so you can hear it, and I just appreciate all your help. So, thank you.
And if you need any,
Maybe we were hearing friends all.
No, that, Martha?
if you need any assistance from this town, please reach out to the clerks with anything in the new endeavor. Certainly appreciate that. All those in favor of the motion, Mark?
Aye.
Keith?
Yes.
Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
I'm in favor. Motion will carry for a new entertainment license to Tail Fins. Congratulations and good luck down there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Down in there?
You're all set.
Okay.
You don't
Thank
have- We'd like you to stay if you'd like, but you don't have to.
The tradition is you have to stand up for the
Being a new manager.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Great day.
Thank you so much.
Are we moving 67 up?
You want to?
It's Martha's call.
I will make a motion.
Congratulations.
I'll make a motion, some of moving up number 6 and 7 to the top of the agenda to number 2 and 3.
Second.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor? Keith? Mark?
Aye.
Martha? I'm in favor. Sven?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. New item 2 on the agenda is discuss an act on the emergency town ordinance to mitigate the spread of COVID to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and visitors to the town, which are imminently imperiled by the unforeseen circumstances of a large spike in the increase of COVID-19 cases in the town, as reported by the Block Island Medical Center. Do you want to combine these? Or should we just leave that? Well, I don't think we don't have anything to discuss on that tonight.
Don't think so. Let's hear what.
Doctor?
Let's hear what the doctor has to say
Is
first.
Dr. Workup with us right now?
Yes, please.
Dr. Workup, if you have any comments on that, we'd appreciate it. Now's the time.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry to say that we've had another increase in our state.
Dr. Workup, can you hold on one second? We have to turn your volume up in the room. Okay, doctor, thank you. Go ahead.
We're still waiting on the new Delta variant sequences that'll be published later this week. I reported out earlier that the state routinely does about 4,000 samples, and they've reported out how many Delta variants they've identified. We'll have more data this coming week. Unfortunately, the new cases have continued to rise. If we go back for a little bit of perspective on 7/19, we had discussed that they were at 28 cases per 1,000 and has steadily gone up to 57, 78. Yesterday was 85, and now we're at 103. So now the state of Rhode Island is considered high transmissible state. So we're in the highest category there is. Unfortunately, we've made that leap. We've quadrupled our percent per 1,000 over the last 2 weeks. So again, we are now in the high transmission category for the state. Similarly, the percent positives have gone from 2 weeks ago at 1.0 to 1.8, and as of yesterday at 3.2. So we've unfortunately seen a real spike there. I wanted to let the town and the community members know that the Director of Infectious Disease Programs at the Association of Pathology Health Labs confirms that the PCR testing is accurate and is the gold standard. The primer that is built is identifying the nucleic acid for COVID, and it will not be falsely positive with something such as the flu. That has quite a different set of markers. But I want people to have confidence that testing is real and it is very accurate. Also, our sewage numbers have gone up. I've made it available to the council to see that our sample has higher concentration levels than 78% of all of our qualified samples in the past 6 weeks. So we definitely have it in our community. We definitely want to be safe. And vaccines are our most effective tool against coronavirus. So please, if you have not yet got vaccinated, please consider doing so. They're available on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Fire Barn. They may have additional Saturdays or many places on the mainland. Moderna vaccine seems to be holding up extremely well, which was the predominant vaccine here on the island. And the vaccines themselves, no matter which one you got, as long as it's US FDA approved, are doing quite a good job of holding up against symptomatic disease, hospitalizations, and death. And still the DOH's recommendation, if you are not fully vaccinated, to wear a mask indoors near anyone you don't live with or outdoors in crowded spaces. So unfortunately, we are seeing it ramp up in our state, and hopefully we can get through this soon.
Dr. Workup, did you get that question?
I'm sorry, I did not.
I'm wondering, since the last we spoke, how we're doing on the island. Is there any more cases here?
We've been recently notified that there's a few people that have tested positive now that they're off the island. And it has not, from an epidemiologic standpoint, been traced back to us, but these individuals feel that there's a high likelihood. We have not seen a large spike in the last 72 hours.
So just to clarify, as of today, cases on the island still stand at 14?
That's correct.
Is that the number? Okay, thank you so much.
I know, barring anybody that's testing people with private tests.
Right, thank you. Does the council have any questions for the doctor?
Well, I guess just the obvious. Are there any recommendations beyond what you just said?
I think those would be the most substantial recommendations, which are please get vaccinated, wear masks if you're indoors, or if you feel at all that you are vulnerable, if you are immunocompromised. Be thoughtful that there are children around that do not have the opportunity to get vaccinated, and that if you are somebody that is post-vaccinated and had coronavirus, you're still a spreader. You may feel symptomatically decent, but you are a risk to others. So I think this is an area where, as a community, we have to think of each other. Please think about protecting children that don't have the opportunity to get vaccines as the adults do, and just be thoughtful.
Thank you.
Thank you, doctor. All right, doctor, thank you. Okay, item 7 is discuss and act on a town resolution to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of and visitors to the town, which are imminently imperiled by the unforeseen circumstance of a large spike in the increase of COVID-19 cases in the town, as reported by the Block Island Medical Center. This is obviously the fruits of last meeting. Does anybody have any questions on a resolution? Does anybody actually have the resolution?
I had the resolution that was distributed by email. At least I got a copy of it. I'm not sure if there's one in the packet, but it looks, Mark's got one here.
Is that the long one?
No, it's not. It's about a page and a sentence.
Hang on.
Literally on the second page is 4 lines.
I'm sorry, Molly. I'm looking.
It looks a little different, but it's set up.
All right, because
Here it is.
I'm going to read it. All right, I'm going to read it.
Excuse me, could you make copies for the public, please, because reading it requires us to digest it as you read it, rather than what it concludes on. Thank you.
Do you have a copy?
I have it on here.
Mark, do you need a copy?
That's it.
You have it?
I believe so.
Keith? All right.
If you have a hard copy, I'll take it. Thank you very much.
Is this the same?
I'm gonna wait until she comes back with hard copies. I'm gonna read it.
So that too. May I also want to endorse the record, in case there's any doubt. I don't understand how we can get to such an important meeting on, as the ones that are on this topic, be it the resolution or the ordinance, without it being available, and a question about its availability having to be asked from the audience. I could think the council and the school would be more prepared for the meetings in advance for the public's benefit.
We do have, the council was distributed this. It was in my emails, and as I'm working off a clerk base right now.
It's not clerk.
What's that?
It is not clerk.
Wasn't on there 5 minutes ago.
You know, I unfortunately, where they uploaded was in the wrong place. They uploaded it under the emergency rooms.
Under the
Emergency.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now. Instead of the council resolution. If you look at item number, hang on.
6.
If you look at item 6, the county road is right there.
Thank you.
See it? Is this the same?
You're correct.
I don't know.
And David, just for clarification, because of your comment, I was sent it at least 3 or 4 hours ago, so I've read it in great detail. But it's a good point.
Well, the point is, this is not the first time.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
happening when
Yeah.
the assumption of the public is that items are being posted in a timely fashion. And the fact that I didn't read item 6 to determine if it was missing.
Where it was, yep.
It's not my fault.
Yeah, yep, I agree.
All right.
The only-
The only thing we would say about the ordinance, not about the resolution, but the ordinance, as you may remember, we had the ordinance on every meeting last summer as a placeholder because we had to have it on. And very often, there rarely was something after we got through the beginning of the summer. But we simply kept it in place, and that's what we determined to do last time, that we were going to keep it on the agenda.
I don't have any problem with it being up on the agenda. My problem is, one would expect to find it under the correct agenda item.
I understand, David, I understand, but there wasn't anything, we didn't actually have any hard copy that was new ordinance this time.
I missed your point, but let's continue to
Okay.
comment about the resolution.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, David, because I'm sitting here and I just went through the same thing what you're talking about. I was looking for the hot link and it's under 6. But I did have it for review before it got posted. And we'll work to be better at that, getting those up there. So the new Stormtown Council resolution regarding the wearing of masks in indoor public places, August 7th, 2021, resolution 2021-08 reads, whereas last week the CDC recommended that Americans fully vaccinated against COVID-19 should go back to wearing masks in indoor places in regions where the coronavirus is spreading rapidly. And whereas last week the Rhode Island Department of Health reported that Rhode Island has substantial transmission of the coronavirus as described by the CDC. And whereas Dr. Chan, a consultant medical director with the Rhode Island Department of Health, recommended last week that masks be worn in indoor spaces. And whereas this time of year, Block Island is overwhelmed with tourists from all over the country and elsewhere. And whereas last week, Dr. Workup, the medical director of the Block Island Medical Center, reported an alarming increase in the number of coronavirus cases on Block Island. The Town Council of the Town of New Shoreham does hereby adopt the following resolution pertaining to masks for purposes of protecting the public health, safety, and/or general welfare of the town, which are imperiled by COVID-19. 1, all persons on Block Island who are in indoor places should cover their mouths and noses with a mask or cloth face covering. For purposes of this resolution, a public place is an area, whether privately or publicly owned, to which the public has access by right or invitation. 2, patrons of indoor restaurants and other establishments which serve food and/or beverages should wear a mask or cloth face covering unless eating or drinking. 3, This resolution regarding face masks does not apply to those whose health would be damaged thereby or who are developmentally unable to comply, including young children who may not be able to effectively wear a mask. 4, the council urges all companies operating ferries to Block Island as well as New England Airlines to advise their passengers of this resolution regarding the wearing of masks or cloth face coverings in indoor public places on Block Island. Now therefore, this council resolution shall become effective immediately upon passage by the New Shoreham Town Council and be made a permanent record of the town. Witness our hands and seals this second day of August 2021. This is the resolution that we have tonight. Does this council have any questions on the document?
I have just a edited, given the new data, I think we should switch substantial transmission and the second whereas to high. We're now in the high category.
But it would be whereas this week.
Yeah.
Instead
We
of,
have substantial as
yeah,
the
but we've
term.
got to change last week.
It's not whereas last week.
Oh, right, yeah, whereas this week, yeah. Or today.
Would you like to make that change?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that change.
Yeah, I am too. Can we discuss others so we can do them all at once?
I'm sorry, what?
Can we discuss other ideas so we can do them all at
Yeah,
once?
please.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Please,
not one at a time.
please. Do you have any? input?
Yeah, I have one or two. I happen to like the word, hold on here. Currently, the words are, all persons on Block Island or indoor places should cover their mouths, et cetera, on item number 1. I personally sort of like the request to cover versus should. So we're requesting that they do it versus sort of a should do it, but that's my personal comment. I think it sort of puts more of the onus on the person being responsible and we're requesting it. But that's one idea. And then the last one on point 4, which is about transportation to the island. This talks about ferries and airplanes. I would request that the marinas all have signage because all the boats coming in and different people. So I want to get all the points of entry.
Yeah.
So I'd request that all the marinas, including Old Harbor and the 3 in New Harbor, have that same sign if we're going ahead with that bullet. So you want wording? Okay, so the council, assuming we have this bullet, the council urges all companies operating ferries to Block Island as well as New England Airlines and marinas. Council urges all companies operating ferries to Block Island as well as New England Airlines and marinas to advise passengers or visitors?
Yes.
Passengers or visitors of this resolution. I just want to get all points of entry. That's my goal. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mark, do you have any comments?
No, I like substituting are requested as opposed to should. Because that is the definitive difference in this resolution. It states that you are requested as opposed to mandate or must.
But there's a problem with that because the first line is what the CDC said. And what is the CDC recommendation right now?
That everybody in high transmission areas, regardless of vaccination status, should be wearing a mask indoors.
And you would point there to the Department of Health in Rhode Island? I'm just
Mark
saying.
No,
asked what the CDC.
I know.
I can't account for what the governor has done or not done. I only care about our island.
I mean, if we're going to say what the CDC recommends, we should say what the CDC recommends, not what we're interpreting it as. I'm just really concerned about putting should, I don't know, maybe there's a way of even just taking that whole line out of there. I'm very concerned about getting should in there and that having a counterproductive effect out here. That I'm a lot more concerned with getting people to do what they're supposed to do, or making people aware that there's still making people aware there's still a problem, potentially a problem, even though we're not really seeing it here, then getting into any kind of enforcement issues, which are going to be dreadful and counterproductive. That's my biggest concern is results. It's not throwing, torches or fire bombs, whatever it is that we think we're doing. We think we're being effective doing it, and we're not.
So you're more comfortable with the request or?
Well, the CDC said, I'm just saying take that whole line out because or something about the CDC, but we can't say the CDC says something they don't say. This is what they're saying.
But I don't have a problem with that lack of parallel there. And that is, in fact, the whereases are the facts as we know them. And the resolution part is our policy decisions based upon the whereases. So, if the majority of the council thinks it should be request versus should, I'm not okay with that.
Okay, well, why don't we go down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whereas Dr. Walkup, the medical director, reported an alarming increase in the number of coronaviruses on Block Island last week. I don't know. You all know where I'm going with this.
Can I ask a point of clarification, Keith? Only because, point of clarification. Did because I'm reading right now, and you never know with Google, right? This says CDC recommends universal. Is there actual statement should? It's a question. I just have no idea.
That was how I read it, but the thing that the CDC did that was kind of significant is that they posted a study of the problem of the Barnstable County outbreak and said, basically, we determined on this basis that limiting indoor mask use to only people who are not vaccinated is not an effective barrier against transmission of the Delta variant. So whether they, recommended should, I think it's a distinction without a difference at this point if you actually read the stuff that the CDC has put out in the last week.
So I guess I make the motion that we change should to request, and to add in the marinas. And I like Keith's first suggestion too.
Just what?
Just the high and this week.
Yeah, it was bullet, whereas
The second
this week,
paragraph.
yes.
And
Yeah.
you motion, and under number 1, instead of should, you want to put what?
Are requested to.
But that's not what the CDC said.
Well, honestly, I had the CDC wording here that says recommends.
Mark, he's talking about numeral 1.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking about number 1. I'm not talking about the whereas. I'm talking about number 1.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I apologize. No, what the CDC says, I'm going to take that as it is. But on numeral 1, which is the important part to us, all persons on Block Island who are in indoor public places, instead of should cover, it would be are requested to cover their mouths.
Okay, I understand now. Fine.
Sorry about that confusion.
Is that a motion?
Yes. Do you want me to say it fully?
Yeah, read talk to Molly so she's clean.
Molly, I think this captures, Keith, your point. In the second paragraph, whereas, instead of last, it's whereas this week, the Rhode Island Department of Health reported. Sorry. Whereas this week, the Rhode Island Department of Health reported that Rhode Island has, quote, high, end quote, transmission of the coronavirus as described by the CDC. Next change is bullet number 1. All persons on Block Island who are in indoor public places, please delete should and say are requested to. And then in bullet number 4, where it says the council urges all companies operating ferries to Block Island as well as New England Airlines and marinas, so adding and marinas, to advise their passengers and visitors of the resolution. Got it? Is that clear to everybody? Well, at least as it's stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Discussion? Any discussion, chief? Any input? Any public from the room? Any public on the digital machine over there?
We're no longer in this.
We left bullet one.
Oh, so it's just us tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Oh, this is a first since,
So I don't know.
Martha wants to know, can you all hear Martha? She's,
You can't, beautifully tonight.
now she's gonna turn her microphone off because we're not online.
Okay, motion made and seconded.
YouTube.
Please.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those,
A second to thank all the business owners who came in here last week to provide us with a lot of valuable information. Thank you.
thanks, Mark.
And thanks to Vic and Vance for their continued cooperation.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor, Keith?
Yes.
Martha? Aye, I'm in favor. Sven?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Third item on the agenda. Discuss an act on, okay, there we are. Third item, discuss an act on the possible adoption of the proposed amendments to the Town of New Shore zoning section 111, general prohibitions, living floor area, which would prohibit a living floor area in excess of 4,500 square feet or building volume in excess of 65,000 square feet, and reduce building footprints for residential structures in the RA and RB zones pursuant to a public hearing held July 21st, 2021. So we've already held the public hearing on this item, and so we're basically here to discuss and act on the results of the public hearing. Council have any questions? I see Marky's here from the planning board.
And Allison's also.
And Allison's online? Okay, thank you.
And we did get more information.
I guess, yeah, I think if somebody, Allison or somebody can walk us through that, the visuals we got about houses and sizes to be able to get scale and concept, that would be very helpful. I assume everybody has that and it was on ClickBase, was it?
Yep.
Can everyone hear me in the room?
Can you talk up a little bit?
Okay. So during the public hearing, the council had requested some local examples of house sizes. So we pulled from, it's the tax assessor's database, the property record cards, because they have the photograph of the house and they have detailed specifics for, finished living area. So the council can get an idea of, there were 8 examples, one being one that was mentioned during the public hearing, Champlin Farm. And then there was some, I tried to pull some more recent developments and some that maybe most people would be familiar with. So they vary in size. And I guess one example, you can see kind of the challenges here with, it's not apples that, there isn't an exact comparison. So I have a summary sheet trying to compile what the zoning definition would equal versus how it's calculated by the tax assessor's office. So, for example, living area on the property record cards, floor area, effective area, those are all calculated slightly different than the zoning definition of living area. So, which includes finished basement. So that summary sheet, it's a Word, one-page Word document that gives an estimated size of living area for those structures to give you an idea as to what it would be if those were to be a current application, what it would be considered for living area through the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Allison. Council, any questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Keith.
So, Allison, it's Keith Stover. How are you? Thank you for joining us. I have to say, I ended up more confused after looking at the vision appraisal documents than I was initially. But the new ordinance, if you go to if you make an application for a special use permit, the limit that could be approved is 4,500 square feet. Is that correct?
Yes, if you're proposing 4,500 square feet of living area as defined by the zoning ordinance, you wouldn't be able to apply to construct if the amendments were passed tonight. It would have to be, yeah, and so that range, there's like the threshold size, that 3,300 square feet above which you would need a special use permit. And then 4,500 square feet would be the absolute maximum under these.
The maximum that could be approved, right? Does that maximum, that includes only building footprint, not decks, for example?
Right, it's finished. So the definition is, which is not changing. This is the current definition in the zoning ordinance. It's really the finished square footage of the interior of the home. So yeah, no open decks,
right,
porches, but it does include the finished basement living area. So it is defined as the total floor area measured in square feet from the exterior limits thereof of that portion of a residential building which is used for habitation purposes, but excluding garage space, unfinished basements, and exterior spaces such as porches and decks.
Okay, and if I have a large lot, I think this is what Mark Emanuel was asking last week. I don't want to speak for him, but if I have a large lot, I could theoretically put a 4,500 square foot building and an adjacent 2,500 square foot building. Is that correct?
Yes, this is for individual structures. So you are allowed to have multiple structures on a property.
Right, provided that you're not exceeding the lot coverage restrictions.
Right.
And Keith, if I can just add, because at the last meeting I misspoke, it's one house and then accessories.
Right.
So only one house in your scenario.
Yep.
Because I misspoke last time.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, that's helpful, Allison. Thank you very much.
Allison, and because I know you were there at the planning board and I was there for some of those meetings, but not all. The 3,500, first of all, thank you for all the work that's been done. And this is the beginning of a lot of work, I guess, is a way to phrase it, right? Because so I understand this is sort of step one and you guys are going to continue to work on it over the next year. 3,500 does not seem like a huge house to me. I mean, it's a big house, there's no question, but as you look at some of these numbers, there are quite a lot of houses sort of in that, I'll call it 3,200 to 3,700 range. And I guess my question is, was there any 3,500 versus 3,750? I mean, was there any sort of data, how that was derived? I am really, just to be very clear, I like the idea of reducing it down. I'm just trying to understand where that number came from.
So the 3,500 is the footprint, not the total living area. So currently 5,000 square foot footprint is allowed in the planning board. There was a consensus that was felt way too large, given most homes are constructed, are two-story homes that are constructed on the island. So so a 5,000 footprint, you could potentially double that. So, but there are other restrictions as far as like building volume that was controlling that. There was no absolute maximum for living floor area. So currently, if somebody were to build a home that was 3,300 square feet, above that, they would have to apply for a special use permit and go through development plan review. So this amendment adds an absolute maximum in those two sections for living floor area that did not exist. There currently was no absolute maximum. So the proposal was 4,500 square feet of living area. And to answer your question, yes, there was some back and forth between planning board members on, coming up with that right balance. So somebody, one planning board member might have wanted it a little lower, one maybe wanted it a little less restrictive. And this is where a consensus was able to be reached, where the planning board was able to vote for it to be recommended out to the town council. So this is these numbers are a consensus of the planning board. But yeah, there was a conversation back and forth as to where that number should be at. And again, it's finding that right balance. So making sure that, like I said during the public hearing, there's several metrics. So you have building volume, footprint, living floor area, the length of the building, those wall planes, and you want them all to be somewhat cohesive, rational, make sense together, right? So if you're lowering one, the other one has to come down at a similar scale so that those measurements make sense together. So that's another consideration. But wanting, just finding it that the current numbers were too high, so wanting to lower it, but wanting to be reasonable and allow for people to have larger homes. So just striking that balance between what they considered they were comfortable with and would be reasonable.
Perfect. And this last question, and maybe it's to somebody, Margie or somebody, is there a sunset on this so that at some point a more refined number or further recommendations are going to be coming forth, or there's no sunset?
There is no sunset at the present time, but if the council chose to add it in, I make an argument for a year and a half to 2 years because of COVID. We think we can do it in a year, but with COVID coming, I hesitate to lock us into something that we might not be able to meet. So I recommend a sunset of a year and a half to 2 years. I personally would prefer 2 to have a little bit of wiggle room, but we can operate with that. We can operate with a year and a half.
And just for everybody's knowledge, my thought of a sunset, it could go higher or it could go lower. I don't know where that number would go, but it would move from the current number, the current recommended numbers, and you'd sharpen the pencils.
You will get new numbers. I do not know what they are, and I think there will be some new techniques that we can adopt to adjust the house size to the lot specifications. Obviously, a large lot would get a greater volume than a smaller lot. Looking at other things such as wetlands, problems with eroding cliffs, floodplains, all those things have to be looked at.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andre.
But I think in reality, at least half of what we're talking about seems to be houses that are pre-existing that are going to be replaced. And a lot of those factors aren't really in play on that. The footprint, the building footprint just seems as if it's written to be incomprehensible. Instead of just saying the building footprint is everything, it begins with the area within the basic foundation, then you add to that all these other things, probably excluding the one thing that, will first come before one of these boards. Oh, look, we didn't think of this one. Ramps, decks, stoops. We don't have a scup. I already found we're missing a scup. Cantilevered, overhang, etc. It just seems like isn't there a cleaner way of doing that? That just says it's the absolute outward reach of any part. I don't know how to write these things clearly. This just seemed very convoluted to me.
the underlying ordinance, I find confusing as well, Martha. And my hope would be that some of it gets cleaned up in the, in the process. I mean, it's not, I was talking to somebody who's an architect yesterday, or the other day, who's working on a renovation, trying to fit everything together, actually trying not to go for special use, and he was struggling with it. And it just occurred to me that bright lines are better than fuzzy lines.
And I guess the other question is this going to achieve what everyone thinks they want to achieve? Or get on the path to achieving what they want to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, this is as Allison said, it's a two-step process. What we're doing is that we're holding size down while we revamp the ordinance to make it more appropriate for the size of the lots and for the type of house that would go on it, as well as all of the various problems that may occur in that particular area of the island. So yes, we will revamp a number of other things at the same time. We'll also want to hold some hearings so we can get input from various community members before we come back to you in about a year.
And I'll say one more thing, and just as somebody who lives down the neck and travels that road, that it seems as though the actual historic manner in which houses were built on the road at a certain time, I don't know if any of those could be built today in this place they are.
They
And
probably cannot because we do have setbacks. In that.
well, this is a big issue, and I read a decision, and it actually referenced streetscape, but it had absolutely nothing to do with the streetscape that has been part of that road that I have traveled for more years than I'm going to say out loud. And one of those houses goes down, and I know how zoning works. The objective is to make something more conforming than it was previously. And is this totally counterproductive? Are we completely wiping out, because we've already wiped out a lot of the character. And one of the things that always bothered me was this lack of, you look around at the old farms and such, and they've got clusters of buildings that nobody wants to do anymore. The farms tend to be off the road. The newer buildings are on the road. And you need only drive to the dump and a little bit beyond to see what I'm talking about. Because I know not everybody goes up and down the neck every day. So I don't go to the west side either, but
There you go.
I'm not good, but I'm done for the moment.
Yep. Margie, is there any projects in the pipeline right now that, if this were passed, I mean,
If it's in the pipeline, it would be called grandfather, yes.
subject to
Yeah.
the other ones?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Allison, for giving us these visual aids. I noticed my sub 1,000 square foot house isn't on the list here. But as I read this, it appears the net result will be more buildings, or the potential net result will be, instead of a big building, more buildings. Is the planning board content with that?
Well, I believe when this ordinance, in 2008, when these ordinances were put together, I believe that, kind of what Martha was just alluding to, the concept of multiple buildings, like breaking up the massing, so not one large home, but more of that farmstead feel, multiple structures. So I think that was almost an intended outcome of it when it was adopted in 2008. So I think, yes, these numbers are coming. Reducing the reduction here a little bit could encourage more of that, where you have home and then an accessory residential structure, multiple accessory residential structures. So that would be a consequence of this type of size and massing restriction, and based on the other sections of your ordinance that allow for those type of accessory structures.
So
I
positive
believe-
consequence, right?
It's a consequence, and I believe many would say an intended consequence. But others may disagree that you'd rather have one large structure than multiple on a property. I guess it's going to vary per like at each property and based on the architectural design of it, how aesthetically pleasing it is. And I think it also gets back to what Margie was just saying about looking at the size of the lots and factoring that into any future amendments. So we could take a look at that and some other things related to multiple structures and try to see how some regulations could be crafted around making sure that if there are multiple structures, that still is, that we control for what that may look like, I guess, and the density of that.
I would only offer the caution that that was one of the problems, I think, inherent in the 1989 zoning, was the coverage.
Anybody else?
One more.
Go ahead, Keith.
I think everybody on the council got a lengthy email a couple of weeks ago from Gail Hall. And while I don't agree with her conclusion necessarily on this particular ordinance, I thought it was one of, as is so frequently the case with her, it was really thoughtful, and it made me glad that she's on planning because she has really thought a lot of this stuff through, and I hope you'll use her thoughtfulness and expertise in the process. I don't know whether you saw it, Margie, but it was really, and it wasn't combative. It was just really thoughtful. Yeah.
It was very informative, and we are going to take some of her ideas and take a look at them when we spend time over this next year figuring out how we're going to reconfigure these ordinances, but she's got some good ideas. And she's got practical experience, hands-on with the selling of houses and renting of houses.
Yeah.
Martha, I really want to compliment you on that farm cluster. I know the word cluster is a bad word at times, but this multiple housing versus the big massing that Mark talked about and Allison did. I make a motion that we approve, how do I phrase this for the agenda? Thank you. Okay, I'll make a motion. Sorry, I apologize. Do I have to read the whole thing? Yeah. I make a motion to approve the recommendations in the planning board regarding section 111, general prohibitions, living floor area. Do I need to read the whole thing, Molly? Or is that fine?
You can reference the ordinance as
Okay.
advertised.
Okay, as advertised, and ask for a sunset clause, sorry, Margie, of 1.5 years.
I can live with your now.
And that just will help us ensure that everything catches up to it. So that's my motion.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
I'll second it. I'm not sure that's the cleanest way to do it, but don't you want to move a motion to the ordinance that's on the floor and then move the amended ordinance? I don't know.
I'll do either. I just want 1.5 years in there.
I think Keith's right. I think it would be clean to
Make a motion on them.
Make a motion to approve the amendments, and then you should say where you want the part about the sunset clause.
I make a motion, okay.
Could I interject with it? You may want to include number 3 at the same time. It's the exact same thing. It's just a different section of the zoning ordinance, and the same changes have to be made in both places.
Oh, no. Okay, I'm going to try this one, and
I'll withdraw my second.
I'll withdraw my previous motion. So a revised motion is, I make a motion to approve the proposed amendment to TNS zoning section 111, general prohibitions in living floor area, and TNS zoning section 514, residential structures in the RA/RB zones, as presented by the planning board. No? Okay, Keith, you go ahead and make it.
So we have agenda item number 2, amendment.
More comment. Is there any comments?
This is not advertised as a Zoom meeting,
Right. Okay.
so we're not.
Thank you. I'm so used to asking that.
Did you make that clear?
No, I'm so used to asking if there's any comments from the public on the Google machine over there. Comments from the public here? All good? Pat Tangwell has a comment. Sorry?
The public hearing's been closed. You closed it last week. You closed it last time.
But a motion's been made and seconded. There's no discussion on this?
Correct.
Patrick, I'll allow you. I can do that.
Thank you, Mr. First Ward, members. My name is Pat Tangwell. I am resident of the island and specifically High Street. My concern with the amendments before you is enforcement. It is not clear to me, if I heard the town planner and Marty Cummings correctly, the reduced number for for the building volume and for the other special, the other.
Living space?
Yeah, the living floor.
Just a second. Does everybody else hear this from their house every night?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick, continue.
Sorry.
My point is that if those are absolute limits, then I think that is the way to go. But if these limits are able to be exceeded with a special use permit, it seems to me that is contrary to the intent of the ordinance.
These are not, that can't be exceeded by special
These
use.
are absolute limits, they cannot be exceeded.
Sand.
Actually, it's triggered, the special use permit is triggered at 2,000, or depending on which line you're looking at, but at 2,000 square feet,
3,300.
3,300 or 2,000, I mean, there are clear triggers.
Right, that is something that needs to be made absolutely clear to everyone reading this ordinance, listening to this meeting, and having, coming up with an idea for a very large house. This has to be clearly communicated. These are limits that will not, shall not be exceeded, period. End of sentence. We're not going to allow something larger. If that is the clear intent of the ordinance amendment, then I certainly will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Keith? I'm in favor, Sven?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
That was the amendment.
That was amended. Now,
The amendment.
no, Keith, you're on a roll, man. I'm not going near
I'm
it.
sorry to be a pain in the neck about it, but
Let's do it right.
you know, let's do it right. I would make a motion to adopt the amendment to the Town of New Shoreham zoning section 111 as advertised and amended regarding general prohibitions on living floor area.
And.
Can you do three, the next one?
What is section?
Oh, and the proposed amendment to Town of New Shoreham section 514 residential structures in the RA and RB zone.
Second.
Just, motion was made and seconded. All those in favor? Keith?
Yes.
Martha?
Aye.
I'm in favor. Keith, what's your name?
Sven, yes.
And yes.
What's his name, buddy?
Oh, this isn't gonna, this in-person stuff, I don't know about this.
So congratulations to the planning board. And thank you, Allison, for all your work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, item number 6 at this point is discuss and act on the possible adoption of the proposed amendment to the Town of New Shoreham zoning map, changing Plat 19, Lot 2, West Side Road from residential A zone to New Harbor Commercial Zone, pursuant to a public hearing held July 21st, 2021.
Oh, we had the hearing. I thought
We had the
done this.
hearing,
Okay.
yep. And we all have that, we've had some time to ponder that.
Yep.
I will make a motion to amend the Town of New Shoreham zoning map, changing Plat 19, Lot 2, West Side Road from residential A zone to New Harbor Commercial Zone pursuant, period, commercial zone.
Second.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor, Mark?
Oh, no finding of fact?
What do you mean? You want discussion?
No, I finding of fact.
And what would you like?
The property is on the sewer line. It's in keeping with the comprehensive community plan for more intense development in the more intensely developed areas. It is surrounded by, on some sides by rather densely populated, moderate income housing or property zoned specifically for such housing. I think that's enough.
Is that good?
That's enough.
We discussed this at the public hearing. Thank you, Martha Ball. All those in favor? Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Keith? I too am in favor. Motion will carry 5-0. Number 7, boards, committees, and commissions announce vacancies on the Sea Level Rise Committee. Sven, I know that you've had,
Yeah, I think on the agenda for mid-month is the Sea Level Rise proposed charter, objectives, number of members, all that. I would recommend that we defer appointments or discussion about the committee till then, if that's okay. I mean, let's make sure we know what the charter is doing. Let's make sure we know how many people we recommend, what the box looks like, then we can talk about it. So I push that off till the 18th or whatever that mid-August meeting is.
It is 18.
Thank you.
thank you.
And by the way, we can put it up on Clerk Page maybe, Molly, if you want, but every I sent Mary Ann and Andre, I sent you guys a draft. I don't know if the other council members have seen that, but hopefully they can see that prior to the meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sven. Discuss and act on the appointment of Commission for Motor Vehicles for Hire Committee. Anybody want to be on the Motor Vehicles for Hire Committee?
We didn't receive any of that.
Make a
Did
motion.
you just say your name? I'm sorry, I saw you say something.
I took a step back.
Thank you. I'm looking at the quiet guy in the corner and he's shaking his head.
Which one?
That one over there.
8, 9.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and act on a Certex change order. And that would be A, engineering costs for DEM and CRMC permitting totaling $70,866. And B, Juniper Ethernet switches totaling $5,000. Mary Ann, could you explain?
Sure, so what's
Thank
before
you.
this evening is two separate, I think it was, so that's the contractor that's in the construction on the Broadband project. There was additional engineering costs as related to the application and the submission of permits for both Rhode Island DEM and CRMC. And the second one, the $5,000 for switches, it's a change in equipment. So at this point, I'm asking the council to approve those change orders as presented this evening, and we'll continue to work forward with this project.
Council, any questions?
I just had a question actually about the Ethernet switches. It just, and you know, I'll vote for both of these, but that just seemed odd to me that they had somehow spec'd the wrong Ethernet switches.
Things change really quickly, I think, with internet
Gotcha.
stuff, so.
Okay, cool.
Mark, can you explain Ethernet switches to us?
No, but I'm still trying to figure out the 8-track tape. This is an $8 million project, right?
Correct.
And this is an extra 70,000. They can't absorb 75K or something like that? Is this our fault?
It's additional work that wasn't included in the scope of work when we advertised.
It just really,
So, Mark, my understanding on this one is that it's a worthwhile expenditure because we're working with DEM and CRMC to do something they've never done before, which is a blanket permit. And if you didn't do it this way, there are certain places where those underground connections are going, where you would have to get separate permits for each property. So that's what they had made the strategic decision to go with a master permit. And apparently DEM and CRMC have been very cooperative, but the engineering and stuff is challenging because they're going through a process that's never existed before. It's pretty worthwhile.
I'm sure it is, but these 5,000 and 70,000, these all start adding up a lot, especially if we're going to see some more across our tables before this is completed.
And I did have that conversation with Mary Ann this evening before the meeting about how close are we to the 8.5 million? Because I know, in my head, I know that this is all adding up to, but we approved up to 8.5?
What was it, presented to the voters was up to $8 million.
Eight.
Keep in mind, we do have some grant applications we're waiting to get from the USDA, which presently is still out there, and Senator Reed was here back in June, we talked extensively about that particular application, and he did make a phone call on behalf of Block Island just about 2 weeks ago. There's also another application that we will be pursuing, and it's through the Department of Commerce. Our former government now heads up that department, so that may be some good news. And also, we are closely following the infrastructure opportunity, the infrastructure bill, whatever you want to call it, that President Biden is discussing right now. So we have a couple of things that may be positive moving forward. So I'm gonna go on the limb here a little bit and say, I don't think we're gonna get up to the $8 million. I think we'll have other funding opportunities out of us.
We can buy you some 8-tracks.
Do we know of any other upcoming overages, estimates, change orders? That, I mean, have they sort of talked about anything else coming up? Obviously, they'll see it when they get there.
Yeah, keep in mind this, not at this point.
Okay, thank
Not
you,
at this point.
thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve the change order for Surtex as presented by the town manager. And engineering costs for DEM and CRMC permitting totaling $70,866 and Juniper Ethernet switches totaling $5,000.
Second.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor? Martha?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Keith?
Yes.
Sven?
Aye.
I'm in favor. Motion will carry. And next item on the agenda is discuss virtual participation at future public meetings. You guys, I believe we have a,
You're welcome.
yeah, go ahead, Mary
I
Ann.
always thought this, so, as you folks all know, the open meetings law does not allow for virtual meetings. However, they do allow for hybrid possibility. What I provided you folks with tonight is the guidance that we received from the Attorney General's office as it relates to open meetings and what they call remote participation. Currently, which is required with the Open Meetings Act, the councils all need to participate in person. Not only with the councils, but also the other boards, it's the same. We can allow for a guest or phone guests. They can participate virtually. Guests, you know, like we have with Dr. Walker, Allison, our attorney. At times, if I'm not here, I can participate virtually. What we can do is the hybrid model, which will allow the general public to participate virtually. What I have done is I reached out to some of my peers in Buck Island that have already set up their council chambers so that they can do that. We, in the past couple months, we've been doing that. However, the camera is just focusing on the council. The camera doesn't move. So if someone's speaking, either whether it's myself, a member of the board, or a member of the audience, you cannot see who that person is speaking because of the camera we currently have in place. And we knew when we bought that it wasn't expensive. We were just putting that in place to get us to where we wanted to be. The sound system is in pretty good shape. I think we may need to enhance it a little bit if we choose to go down this route. So what I'm asking from the council tonight is some kind of consensus if this is something you'd like to explore. Keep in mind though, even if we do decide to explore this, there's 4 companies I already know about based on my conversation with folks, off Fiverr. The other
Or opinions on it?
I guess I have one as an overarching opinion, and that is, I think one of the things we learned from Zoom besides Andre's fun squares comments, is that how many people participated, and that it was a really large number, some who were on island, some off island, all that. And I think it was a huge gain for all of us, and I think it helped the community. Unfortunately, at times maybe not come together, but it helped the community. So I'm a big proponent of continuing as open a meeting structure as possible. And I leave it sort of that openness. I don't know whether that's Zoom. I don't know whether it's YouTube. I don't know if it's phone. I don't know what it is. And I hear you on waiting for broadband, but I think that could be a year, or I don't know how long it's going to be, but it could be a while. And I really would love to understand, this is a, now we've got a new IT group. We've got some people that understand the equipment. Maybe they can help blend it. And let's come up with the cost of trying to come up with a way that people who are home, they are, invalids, they can't come in, they can still participate. They're off island for a doctor's appointment, they can still participate. I'd love to be able to investigate that as soon as reasonable. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sven. I think the more opportunity there is, at least to even view what we're doing and saying, makes a great deal of sense. I'd love to know what the cost of that is. I have a hard time imagining it being overwhelming. I would like to figure out something that doesn't create the amount of stress on the clerk's office that the last year has created, because I just, no one should have to go through that, where every meeting is a technological challenge in addition to the work that the clerks have to do. And I have to believe, maybe I'm just wrong, but I have to believe that there's a less stressful way of doing this. And then the final point I would make is, I don't think this should just apply to the town council. I mean, to me, when you look at there was overwhelming support for a provision in the new charter to move a lot of the major committees toward people being able to view remotely. And, I remember, I think it was Molly O'Neill especially was pushing for this on things like zoning, where, people might want to watch a matter that's before zoning that involves an abutting property or something like that. So I think it's consistent with where we all are philosophically to explore it. I also think it's consistent with where the direction that the charter was moving to do it. So anyway.
I'd like to echo Keith.
Boo, okay, not used to this working. I think it's really,
Speaking of the sentences.
I think it's really, obviously, we have to get into the broadcasting because that's in our charter now. And in the past, before any of this happened, we did on occasion have consultants who would call in, and however that, our attorneys or whomever. And I think that works with presenters for zoning planning, HDC especially. As far as interactive audience, all over everywhere, I'm really not completely on board with people in February telling us what we should be doing when they haven't been here for 6 months and have no idea what the weather conditions are and, why is it can't even come up with a good analogy, but we all know, we've all been there. But I do think the broadcasting and some level of interactivity is very important.
Is that I thought part of the plan of the renovation or the expansion of Town Hall was going to include a lot of this technology. And one thing I would still love to see are some monitors up here, maybe large size monitors. How many HDC or zoning meetings are planning where they have one map and they're tossing it around the table? So make this area very friendly too to people.
Good idea.
I agree, but, so the only thing I fear about making Zoom and, I'm all on board with broadcasting the meetings on YouTube so people can see, but we have agendas, people can write, they can call us ahead of time, but as we have noticed, and Martha just mentioned February, people calling us, telling us what to do, I just think that if we embrace this, you're going to find that the town's going to be run by all these people that are calling in online. So I favor the broadcast on the YouTube. I do not support this input of digital, on every meeting because, Martha alluded to it. We had people calling us after cocktail hour.
I didn't say that.
I'm going to say it. Yelling at us. Well, 7 o'clock is pretty far after cocktail hour. And I think Block Island, we're all here. You guys are all in this room. You guys all live here. You guys all have a stake. And I'm not saying other people don't, but I want residents in the room. I want people that have a stake that are here in January, February. And if people want to write, call, they've always been able to do that. But I would like to go back to the way what we were before the pandemic, with the addition of more graphics that we can, share screens and whatnot. But I've had, running these meetings, I've seen a room full of people with not one of them a 401 area code. And that's fine, I guess. But I'm just thinking if we embrace that, we're going to find that this place isn't going to be run or governed by the people who actually live here year round. And that would be a sad state of affairs for me to embrace that. So that's my opinion on that. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but I think the people that have the input, the David Lewises that are here, the Bill McCombs that are always in the same seat. I want to hear from people face to face, not drunk people sitting in another state most of the time, dictating.
Well, I think the more the merrier personally, but with that argument, I'll just remind everybody what took place here last week, where we had one of our residents here and probably could fill the definition you just described there. So I'm all for the more the merrier. And how are you going to tell someone who owns a house out here paying their taxes they can't have input?
Well, they can have input.
Yeah,
They can have input. They can have input. They can call. They can email. I'm not saying no input. We've always had that.
I like the Zoom, and boy, that's coming from me.
David?
So, I'm coming in reverse order to what people said, because everybody made some good points. So, in my perfect world, I would like to be calling in and commenting from Florida every February. So, anyway, stay tuned.
What time's cocktail?
Does it matter in February?
I haven't had a cocktail since I got sick, so I think I'm over that hurdle. And then, so, I just, Sven's comment about people who pay taxes here, they're calling from other marks, they're calling from other area codes because that's where their cell phone goes. We have a lot of Rock Island people here, people that we think are residents that in fact have Connecticut, just to name a couple area codes. You really can't tell by that where they're calling from. But a couple other points, following up behind other people. So with regard to the YouTube, I've listened to Utah live and also the next day. I still need to go back and pick up on the May 3rd work session with the Tourism Council. My point though is that does anybody in town, I know you can all keep track because it's right in front of you on the Zoom calls. Then I'm going back to listeners you have calling in. Is anybody keeping track of every Zoom and just a week later after the meeting to see how many views it actually has?
YouTube.
I guess it's not because it's an added burden for someone to check something a week plus after the meeting.
He doesn't text me
It might
anymore.
be something you want to do as you collect those, I'm sorry? And it might be valuable statistic, so you put that as part of your understanding of how the public uses it. The other point I wanted to make was, I just wanted to know, because I intended to call Millie and I didn't get around to it, but let her know. She and I had a discussion the very day that the IT group was coming out to triage before the most recent meeting. And I thought the improvement, I went back the next day and even though I was sitting here, I went back the next day to check on the quality on the YouTube. And do you, as a group, have any awareness of, without doing what I did, do you have any awareness about how it's coming through live? Because I can tell you what I found. I found I could hear the council as a general statement, I could hear them very well, very well. Put in the good category. When Dr. Walkoff spoke, I could hear him perfectly. It's like as if he was sitting right here in the room next to me. When there was one speaker that spoke from the microphone, and that was very hard to discern, even though she was whole.
It was hard in this room, David.
Yeah, well, I'm finding that out too. So, and then I noticed the counselors were all struggling, and it's a learning curve, I'm sure, with using their microphones in a compatible way with being to allow it to be picked up by the microphones to get it through YouTube recording. I don't know how that technology works, and I don't really care. I just thought you might be informed by my observations.
Yeah. Thank you.
So it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you, David. I'll just clarify.
For being in the room.
Thank you, David. You touched on a subject of Bill said, the first or second warden having to run and, moderate a meeting while there was, looking at the screen. And the other day when we were doing the hybrid, there was public before me. There was public on the screen. There was an agenda on my screen. There were supporting documents on my screen. And I just found it extremely difficult to focus on the agenda items and the tasks at hand, having to run all that. So that's why Millie is there with her computer now, because right now all I have is ClerkBase and my supporting documents in front of me. I don't have to constantly monitor who is in the room, or she's not doing that either anymore, apparently right now. But it's extremely, extremely difficult to have to monitor that from my point of view. And going through, we got kind of used to it during pandemic when nobody can be in the room. But once now people can be in the room, I see absolutely no need for that when people can call, write a letter before a meeting, or come to the meeting. Because everybody has their input. It's just maybe that's more convenient to do it that way. I mean, I know you are a very succinct and detailed and thoughtful letter writer. And that's kind of what I want when I'm taking into consideration on items on the agenda.
I would just say, and I agree with what you said, and actually, you and Ken before you, to the people viewing on YouTube, you could see the pain. You could feel the pain that the difficulty you were having in managing your meeting, as well as managing all that technology. So I think it's a big improvement. Just, I can see observationally that having Millie here the last 2 weeks, helping out with people calling in on the Zoom portions, has been productive for you.
Like another thing that's was happening during Zoom and was people are texting us too. And I can see your phones going off with the same names right now.
Yeah.
And that is no way to run a town.
No, it's actually not right.
It's not right. And I think I let off right. I think I said at one of the meetings, I'm like, everybody has just got to stop texting me during a meeting. We can't govern through text.
So Sandra and I decided we can't text each other, nobody else can.
It was you and Willie, not you and myself.
What do you mean, Willie?
You were sitting right next to him.
Look, I didn't have to text him, we're sitting next to him.
I'm just saying. I mean, it's not a way to govern a town. If people have input on the agenda, again, there's always before the meeting, there's a phone call. There's a letter to Molly that we all receive. So we all are on the same page. That's my feeling on that. Just.
I couldn't do what Andre does, what Dennis does, and what Ken has done before. I couldn't do it.
We're gonna make you take care of all these big screens when they go in.
I will say, Andre, and I respect, different points of view, so that's perfect. The one thing I have learned, sometimes when you hear a meeting or you're watching it, suddenly you come up with an idea that you wouldn't have thought through, or you build off somebody else's comment, things like that. So that's the reason I sort of encourage the open dialogue. And I think we just got to come together and figure out how to do it and what's a good process. So we're not overwhelmed by, I'm going to call it outside noise.
If I can just respond to that, I think one
of the problems that we were coming up against during Zoom, and hopefully we won't be doing that by the grace of God, we will not be going back into that tunnel. People on Zoom were responding to something that happened 10 comments back. And that was where I used to talk about how we're missing the dynamic of being not just us, but of the audience. And that was a real problem, oh, I want to talk about, well, yeah, we talked about that. We really have to go back and start this over again. And you get the feeling that people aren't really listening to anything other than what they want to say. And that, we all have a tendency to do that, but I think it was exacerbated by the long distance, I'm not going to say it, but, and the obvious distractions you have when you're just on Zoom wandering around your house.
And I just Margie being in, Margie, I'm going to use you as an example because you're here at tonight's meeting. You're sitting there and I can see you, I can speak to you, I can make eye contact with you. And I get,
Yes or no?
or I can just look at you and see the look on your face and not even have to ask the question that I was thinking of. I mean, it's just the in-person thing to me lends itself to the more community-orientated government that we've had for all these years. Now, I don't mind if the boards and committees want to have, do that, but for the council, I'm just not in favor of the whole digital thing. You don't have to
find a combination of the two because everybody here has very good points. And I agree with everybody, but there's got to be some way where you have a healthy balance. Because when I run a planning board meeting, I couldn't do what you're doing. I told Jen to start with that she'd have to monitor and let me know when the audience was calling in because I couldn't do that and run the meeting and call on other people who were presenting for us. You could only do just so much and then you have meltdown. It's also important to hear from the audience because talking does trigger thoughts that you might not have had until you heard somebody else say something. So a happy hybrid somewhere, and I don't know what the answer is, but let's look for it.
So
and exactly that wouldn't have come across the same as on YouTube. I mean, on the Zoom, as you just did right now in person.
We're not going to say anything tonight.
Well,
Let's look at options. We're not going to decide anything tonight.
Right.
I get enough information.
Do you?
Thank you.
No, let's go long.
And I saw the questions, yeah.
Because I'm gonna forward all the hate mail I'm gonna get for my comments in this room tonight. I'm gonna forward them right on your desk.
I'm going to start forwarding my hate mail.
Somebody, Bill?
I agree with what's being said. I just think it's really important, I think, when it comes to the consultants, and not every case, but there are times when we've had Kathy and like tonight with Allison, be able to participate, even if it's not Zoom, whether it's through a conference call. I think that's, there's been times where meetings have to be canceled because of weather and so forth. I think that's a real good tool. I think not only does it save the taxpayers money, the travel and everything with it also. And there's some cases where, like tonight with Allison, be able to report not going to be here, and there's other times that maybe more in depth than she might need to be. So I think it can be a win-win from there. And for Martha and Mark, remember Mike Bayless back in the 80s, Nancy Dodge used to call as the town solicitor at a certain time. So it's really, it's a concept that was used before, and I think it has its application in appropriate time.
What?
Oh, you had to bring up the 80s, didn't you?
No, but I do remember we did do this a long time ago, and it did work without anything fancy, anything more fancier than a phone.
That was fancy for the 80s.
Ha ha.
We good?